Is higher education actually preparing students for the real world?
Is there a job guarantee? No, there's no job guarantee, right? So there's also not an internship guarantee, right? Because it's a little bit different, right? Because we are not a placement agency, right? Because you want to drag the students out of their comfort zone and drag them into real life with excursions, etc. So maybe, it's a time to break out of your shell and really go out there and live your life in that regard. In the age of AI, I think the humanistic aspects are more important than ever before.
Is higher education actually preparing students for the real world?
The most frequent questions the international students ask is if our programs are in English, which documents they need to upload when doing an application, and how much time do we take to even provide a feedback.
Students work on a very specific task throughout the semester, bringing the knowledge of different courses so that they can put together the skills and the experiences that they gain through different topics and different subjects like theory, history, but also technology, sustainability.
We work in small groups, and we work in a way that also has a lot to do with cooperation with the reality of the business life out there. That means we interact with real companies.
For sure, in the age of AI, I think the humanistic aspects are more important than ever before. The human-to-human interaction, maybe even in person, right, is more important than ever before.
To make connections, take benefit of the architectural environment and business aspects of the city, to have fun and to not pressure themselves.
It's not only about studying, it's really about having a life here.
I chose Whitecliff because of the international experience and study programs.
Welcome to Rebooted. I'm Priya Rao, and this show exists because I have spent years with brilliant international students who arrive in Germany full of ambition, get their degree, and then have no idea what comes next. Today's guest has built companies, led universities, and spent his career asking the same uncomfortable question I ask. Is higher education actually preparing students for the real world? He is the Chancellor of Whitecliff University of Applied Sciences, which is a part of the Whitecliff Global Network, Professor Dr. Peter Konhäusner. Welcome to Rebooted.
Priya, thank you so much for having me. Very glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter, you built your first company into an international media organization over 15 years. What did that teach you about what young people actually need when they enter the workforce?
Priya, now we're getting into the history, right? So this is over 25 years ago. Yes. So basically, when I started my first company, it was really a garage startup, and we started with some friends, and there was no profit ambition at all, right? It was all about learning how to use tools, how to build a business model in the end then as well, because we saw that there's traction. So we built a website first, and we saw, okay, the content we are creating, the services that we are offering in the media sector, like you said, it was a magazine basically about games and digital entertainment. And when we built this, we saw, okay, there is a market for that. We had some users on the website, and at some point we said, okay, maybe we can make money out of that. So we were pretty lucky. It was the right timing, and it was the right place also to do that. And, we were all eager to learn. And I think this is, and to experiment. And I think this is something that really we want to spark in students. And this also triggered me to give something back in terms of teaching and going to startups and mentor them as well, because I want to enable this critical thinking. And I have to say, critical thinking for me has nothing to do with conspiracy theories, etc., but rather than asking the right questions, and in that regard, become, mature citizens and being ready for the job market, because I think in the future, and I'm not diving too deep directly into that, Priya, right? But the thing is that for sure in the age of AI, I think the humanistic aspects are more important than ever before. In that regard, that the human-to-human interaction, maybe even in person, right, is more important than ever before.
Very well said. I think in the coming days, with so much of content, so much of noise across so many social media platforms, I think the only thing which will stand out is going to be the human authenticity across it all, which will make all the difference. You cannot copy and exist in this world right now.
No, and it's also why you say what you just said, Priya, right? There's an overwhelming amount of information out there, and I'm always telling my students that we are somehow, we are animals, especially in our brains still, right? We just dress nicely and we try to behave nicely, but actually our brain is not evolving at the same speed like the whole world around us, which we are evolving ourselves, right? And we are absolutely overboarding ourselves with information. I mean, everybody knows that. Look 2 generations back, right? Our grandparents were happy to read a book, right? And back in the days, also the book was condemned as a devil thing, etc. And nowadays, okay, you can have your opinion if social media is the devil or not, but a matter of fact is that there are so many channels of media trying to get your attention, and you're completely, the FOMO is real, right? You think if you're not on a channel, if you miss your phone at home, right, you think that you are completely cut out of this world, right? Which sometimes, I think it's a bold endeavor, and we are not doing this, right? We don't want our students to be completely disconnected from the digital force, because this is not possible. But on the other side, the question is, are you using your phone, or is your phone using you, basically?
So true. Very well said. This brings us to our next question. What brought you from GISMA to specifically? What did you see here that you wanted to be part of?
Basically, going back in time, I'm still an entrepreneur at heart and also in practice, right? So I'm running my own companies, and I'm really happy to be an entrepreneur for over 26 years. But then at some point I went into the academic sector, became a professor, and became also a vice president academic at GISMA University of Applied Sciences in Potsdam and Berlin, which was an amazing journey. And I'm absolutely grateful to the whole team and to all the learning that I could do there, because also here, right, I'm a big advocate for lifelong learning, and that you are challenging yourself, you get out of the comfort zone and you get to know stuff. And, there are always, if you're looking at a new job, I think it's always something that triggers you, because other than that, you would not do it. What was the specific point here? I think that I could see myself contributing in an entrepreneurial way to the endeavors of Whitecliff University of Applied Sciences, right? So it's a smaller university. There's a lot to build up, a lot to foster, and especially the international scope is amazing. What we are trying to do with the global student mobility. Not that this was not also possible with GISMA, right? But GISMA has seen also such a growth from 200 students when I joined to over 3,000 now, which is amazing, and a big kudos to the whole team that achieved that. But I think it was time for a new venture in that regard.
Okay. And so BI is now part of the Whitecliff Global Network, which means you have campuses across Berlin, Istanbul, New Zealand and Washington, right?
It is actually, so Berlin International turned into Whitecliff University of Applied Sciences, and we have now New Zealand, Australia, Dubai, Toronto, and actually Berlin, yes.
Amazing. So for a student who's sitting in Berlin, probably watching our podcast sometime in the timeline, in the future timeline, what does that actually mean in practical terms for that student?
a lot of opportunities, right? So basically what we are working towards, and this is graspable quite soon, potentially when you are watching this podcast, is that you can study not only in Berlin or not only in Australia or not only in New Zealand, but you can also come and enjoy this global network and can get your study experience or your internship experience recognized around the globe, right? So what our vision is, and I'm not saying that this is easily to achieve, right? But what our vision is to study basically in a bachelor, 1 year in Berlin, 1 year in Australia, 1 year in Toronto, and then come back to Berlin to have this international experience, but also this international network. And this is what we want to really achieve, to enable students with critical thinking and also with a global network that they can use later on. Because I think, and this is maybe also a little bit of a counter move to everybody working and studying remotely. I think the real connections you're doing when you face people and when you spend time together, when you are sitting over a coffee and you're studying together and solving problems together, which you can do remotely, right? But I think some important elements are missing, right? And this is why we want to really enable students with the student mobility, but also research collaborations where students are also happy to join, and generally also this whole topic of program development on an international scale. These are our big projects at the moment.
It's really brilliant. And I think somebody who's in Berlin is already exposed, I would say, spoiled for choices, because we are used to so many people sitting in the same classroom. In some of the universities, I see we have close to 55, 65 nationalities in these Berlin campuses. It is so intercultural. But within that space, within your university space, if you're giving them this option to move out to maybe 1 year in Australia, another year in another country, it's a great immersion program, I think, that is really well thought out.
And Priya, there are also these programs where you have, like, in 1 year, 6 countries or something like that, right? Which is also quite nice, but I think it comes a little bit later in your career, right? When you are, for example, bachelor, also and young master student, I think you have to have also the time to settle in a little bit, and you want to experience also the ecosystem you are coming into, right? So it does not really make sense to spend 2 or 3 months only in Australia. You want to settle down also a little bit and get to know people, build your network, also maybe for the future. But most importantly, it would be that they are coming back after that to Berlin, because we need a young, energetic, and committed workforce in the future, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
This is one of the reasons why I do what I do, so that we can bring informed people into Germany, which requires people, right? We are
absolutely
we really need a lot of skilled workers in the country. So, how would you describe? So, through my company Workpunkt and through this Rebooted effort, we are trying to also give some semblance to what Germany has for a student sitting in India. There are many parts of India which requires this information. So how would you describe to a family in India who has never heard of it in one honest sentence?
So Whitecliff, if you describe Whitecliff in one sentence, Whitecliff University of Applied Sciences in Berlin is your hub to a global future of employability and global networking in a critically thinking environment. I think this is important. We have a big focus on architecture and interior design at the moment, which is our USP, you can say, right? We are here in walking distance to the Technical University, so really centrally located also in Berlin. We have also wonderful programs in business administration and data science, which we are building up now more and more in the future. So I think studying at Whitecliff is really a wonderful start to have, to be centrally located in Europe, to have job opportunities later on, and to have also a network that can help you boost your career.
Beautiful, very well articulated, I would say. So I want to get into something I ask every guest, and I intend to ask every guest in the coming days.
Now it's getting.
I call it the reality check.
Yeah. I thought so. Now it's getting exciting.
So BI offers architecture, design, business, data science, right? All in English in Berlin. That sounds like almost too good where does the reality not always match the brochure?
Like, I would say that the reality pretty much, and this was also something that always dragged me to universities which are authentic, right? I would say that GISMA was authentic, and Whitecliff is very authentic. There's not much which is not matching the brochure. I think that maybe two things that we are actively working upon is more space, right? Because students, especially architecture space, they need a lot of space for their creativity, and we have a lot of space here, but we are expanding right now our space as we are talking. So we'll have new space from October onwards, where students have even more space for creativity, and also more options for exchange and student life. I think this is something where nearly every university can do better, because you want to drag the students out of their comfort zone and drag them into real life with excursions, etc. And also with on-campus activities. And I would say, there is a lot happening, but we have to motivate students to also take these opportunities. I mean, it's if I look back at my university time, I mean, I was not attending all the events neither, right? And I regret to have not done that, because this is a time that is not coming back, and it's a unique time. We always think, okay, it will, be better in the future and you will have more time. No, they're different, or the opposite is the truth, right? You should grasp everything that you have in the moment and live also in the moment. And if somebody's inviting you to an interesting, to a cultural walk across the city or the company trip, etc., just join there, because maybe there are open doors that you can use for a student job or for your later on network, right? To grab the opportunity. And this is something where in brochures we are always saying, right, these events are all fully packed, etc. Well, there's always a space, right? Because sadly enough, the students are not always taking these opportunities.
It is so well pointed out by you, because I think this is one big challenge where I feel international students come in. They either get really busy doing that part-time job, or they get really busy studying, and they forget that networking could have been a great asset, a great enabler while they are here. And having personally taken that journey 7 years ago as a student, I think the only thing which rescued me was networking. And because we entered into the Corona times soon after our year of graduation, and it was a really tough time for a lot of us. But networking, like you said, and where else if not in Berlin? It's one of the most culturally rich parts of Germany, where language is not a barrier, but one should not stop learning the language, of course. But I think it's a great place to be.
Priya, absolutely, and maybe if I may add also here, absolutely, I admire your road and the whole journey that is behind you, right? I think you have done very, very nicely in that regard, and right, a lot of kudos for everyone who is coming to Germany, right, and is also staying. And because it's not easy, right, you already get out of the comfort zone by coming to Germany, into another country. But as you said, I think it's totally important to for sure, see the opportunity. It's not only about studying, it's really about having a life here. And even if you say, okay, you want to come here and study, and then you want to go back to your country because your family, maybe you want to inherit the company, etc., which is all fair and square, right? But use the time that you have here to make the most out of it. Find friends, right? Find an international network. Learn the language, because okay, German is not easy, as we all know. I'm quite blessed to have it as a native language. Also, Austrian is not German. We all know that. But actually, there are studies that if you are learning a new language, right, it helps also your brain, right? It helps your intellect, etc., and it helps you also socially to connect. And if you are just here and study, you miss out. And even if you're only here and study and work, you're also missing out, right? Because, okay, it's important to earn money. It's good money that you can earn, etc. With the right jobs, right? Because we don't want students to go into low-income jobs, but to have the qualification to go into nice part-time jobs, into nice internships, which are also paid, etc. But the thing is, also don't forget to live, right? You should also socialize, get friends, and really grasp like you said. I mean, Berlin is the most international city in Germany, and it has so much of culture and so much of activities, events, etc. So and for sure the whole dark history part where many tourists are coming from. So maybe it's the time to break out of your shell and really go out there and live your life in that regard.
Absolutely. So this is such an important thing, and I tell this to the students that don't get disillusioned if you get some amount of money as a part-time job. Keep your eyes on the prize, because there is a lot more that you can get in this amazing country if you decide to settle down. And one of the more important reasons why I insist that they should look at learning German as a language when they move in here is, one part is to be able to go to a grocery store and negotiate your way in that situation. That is one very, very small part. But the bigger part is, I think language is a great reflection of culture, how people think, how people behave, how people talk. You instantly feel at home if you make an effort to learn that language. And then, of course, there are bigger rewards of learning that language. By learning, let's say, a B1 level of the language, you are allowed to apply for your permanent residency. That is one big feat, right? After you have completed your studies, you are eligible. And I often see international students, starting to get worried when they have been working for the last 2-3 years, and now they are ready and they are eligible for a PR, a permanent residency, but they have not learned the language. And I think that time it becomes already so late. They have lost interest, and they went through a bigger, tougher grind because they did not know the language. So I always insist, even though we are talking about English taught programs where students can enjoy, but learning the language could be such a great enabler when they move in here to Germany.
And maybe to add also here, Priya, I completely echo that, right? And the thing is also, for sure, with a little bit of German, I'm not saying, completely fluent, but with a little bit of German, it's also easier to get into the job market, because for sure in Berlin, there are a lot of English-speaking jobs, and that's great, right? Yes. I'm actually part of a working group in Brandenburg, where we are discussing, universities are discussing with other public universities, or private universities and public universities are discussing with the county of Brandenburg, and also with representatives of the economy about the future of work, how to integrate immigrant students, right? And the big topic is there for sure language. And just to give you some insights, it's clear that the students should learn German, so everybody's agreeing on that. On the other side, there's also discussion that many of the employers should also be more open to use English, right? Because it cannot be in the day and age of today that you are completely locking yourself to the local country language, right?
Yes.
If Germany wants to be competitive in the future, it has to open up to a more global mindset, meaning also to have more languages on board. I'm not just saying about English, right? It can be Hindi, it can be Spanish, it can be French, I don't care, right? But basically a company that is only speaking one language will never be successful in the global market. So there is this discussion going on, right? But
brilliant.
I mean, there's also I love this saying, Priya, sorry. I don't want to get too philosophical, but the thing is also that you can only change yourself, right? It's not that you can change somebody else, no matter how much you influence the other one, you can only change yourself and your own behavior. And in that regard, to be honest, you can learn the German language yourself, right? You cannot force somebody else to use English all the time, right? So do the step. Make it easier for you. It's not that hard if you do it continuously. I had students who learned German up to a fluent level in 14 months. Okay, these are also exceptions, right? But they really nailed it completely. I mean, the students were talking with everyone German, no matter if they are talking English back or not. Maybe this is a little bit too hard, right? But I would say 2 years, 2.5 years to fluency and B1 is doable.
Possible. Very much possible. I so agree with you. Yes, that is a very important thing, and you also spoke about spaces. Creating more space. Having visited your campus, I want to say, and I want to compliment the space that you have created for your architecture students. You have a lot of space, and I think very few universities enjoy that kind of a space, also, right? So it's really good. I wanted to compliment you for
Thank you. Thank you. I think if you look at an architectural school like Whitecliff is for 11 years now, I think it's just important that you have the space to express your creativity. And we have also a workshop. I don't know if you have seen the workshop, but the workshop in the cellar, it's really amazing. It's a
Yes, we did go
creative
there.
a creative hub, and really, we have our very skilled colleagues there helping also students to fulfill their dreams. And really, I would totally struggle by doing this, right? But basically what students are creating there in terms of graphic design, but also in terms of the models, etc., it's really wonderful, right? A lot of
It is indeed.
admiration.
I have seen your workshop, and it's amazing what you have as tools and teachers, professors who are there handholding the students in their learning curve. I think it's really good. I want to ask you, when international students graduate from Whitecliff University of Applied Sciences, what does year one of their career actually look like? Do they stay in Germany, or do they go back home? Do they look for internships?
So it's different, right? I mean, it's very
Yeah.
much an individual choice, I would say. The most important thing is maybe to mention that when you are coming here as an international student, you might come alone, but from the first time you are on campus and the first time you connect, right, you're never alone anymore, right? Because you are with your colleagues, you are with the Whitecliff community. And basically, this comes from the time you are joining till the time you are completely in your business life and later on in your career. So you stay a Whitecliff alumni. Also after that, you get all the support from the Whitecliff community, which is a great thing, right? So I think it's a little bit individual. I've seen many students coming and saying, okay, they want to get back to their home country because they have family there and they want to build up their life there. And then all of a sudden, there's some kind of change in their fate, etc. In terms of there is some opportunity here and they stay and they're completely happy, right? So I'm not a big fan of making plans for 3 or 5 years because there's so much happening. There's this saying that life is happening while you are making plans, right?
Yes.
I would say the most common things happening after graduation is, okay, you stay maybe with the job that you have already because you are working as a student worker and the company is happy to get you on board full time, or you're searching for a new opportunity on the market. I mean, Germany is needing a lot of skilled labor in the future, so this is a great opportunity in that regard. Or you go back and work a few years in your home country and then you come back and do your master study, also happened. So there are a lot of opportunities. The most important thing is that you stay in touch with your cohort, you stay in touch with the community, and you also watch what you have built, what you have invested in for a couple of years.
Absolutely. Very good piece of advice, because there are many routes possible. And oftentimes I have students asking me that if I complete this degree, will I get a job? I say, the country is not the work in progress. You are. Are you getting skilled for the job that you are planning to go for? Because you don't know with that one degree, whether it is in Germany or in India or another part of the world, if you have not skilled yourself enough, you don't know which way you will go. But if you are skilled enough and you make that effort to get skilled for that market, whichever that market might be, then sky's the limit. You can carve so many different paths. You could do the master's way, like you just said, or maybe take up internships, take up full-time jobs, and get rewarded for the effort you put while you were in the university studying.
And maybe, Priya, to add also here, we have also students asking, okay, is there a job guarantee? No, there's no job guarantee,
Exactly.
right? So there's also not an internship guarantee, right?
course.
Because it's a little bit different, right? Because we are not a placement agency, right?
True.
Because we are actually all the colleagues, right? All the faculty is really helping the students to find jobs, right? They are assisting, they are supporting, they are looking at the CVs, right? They're giving advice, they're giving the network, but you have to write the letter for application. You have to do the job interview and you have to sign the contract, right? So
Yes.
I'm often saying we are not here in kindergarten. So, and this is also not something that we want to be, because it's higher education, right? We are a state accredited school, and we want to basically enable students to have a mature and critical thinking life later on, and not holding hands too much, because you want to also be proud of what you have achieved yourself, which is completely fine, right? Especially later on, Priya, I mean, another route maybe that I've missed before is many students are also saying, okay, maybe I find a job, but maybe I also start my own business, right? So
Absolutely.
the whole entrepreneurial space is also a big one in Germany and in Berlin. And you can easily find co-founders at meetup events. You can easily start your own company. Maybe from a bureaucratic side, not as easy as in other countries. You have to say that, right? It takes a little bit longer. But you can also start your international company here and expand it from here, from a safe environment out, right? From a safe
Absolutely.
and predictable environment out, I would say. Yes.
In German, as we would say, langsam aber sicher. I think-
Langsam aber sicher. Yes, I like it. Yeah.
It's exactly that road. I think this has been my personal journey from being in a job after being a student, and I was a very old student who came into Germany. But
Come on.
I want to say that moving into this entrepreneurial side has been such a revelation. And in the age of AI, we can be doing so many things in the comfort of our home. So there is no stress anymore. And I tell this to many Indian students who are very entrepreneurial, because India is a very fast-paced economy, right? So these students are exposed to a lot of faster services. And I say that if you see that there and you feel that it is not here, you could always come with that entrepreneurial mindset and come and set it up here, because Germany is pretty open. Especially Berlin is one of the startup capitals of the world. So
And we need innovation in Germany as well,
need.
right?
Yes.
Absolutely. Not only in Germany, but also in Europe. Maybe this is also an important part, right? That to say that once you have also graduated in Germany, you can also seek for jobs all over Europe, right? Because you're in the Schengen area, which is great for sure. We would like to keep you here in Germany, but maybe you find the Spanish weather a little bit more attractive, or the Italian food could also be, or you like the mountains in Austria. So there are a lot of opportunities. And in that regard, also, Priya, to come to the point of before, I think it's also important to use the time that you're studying to explore Europe, right? Because it's quite easy from Berlin to travel everywhere with the train, with the bus, or you fly there. And you can see Europe from a cultural, from an environmental perspective, really wonderful countries that you can reach from here. So this is also another opportunity.
yeah, 1.5 hour away. Most of the countries are
Yes.
1.5 hours away. And it's so cheap for a student. They could literally be traveling for 50 euros to and fro as a student and go enjoy over a weekend and come back, explore all of these countries. It's amazing. I want to ask you now, we have this big elephant in the room now, the artificial intelligence, which is now starting to disrupt every profession and even education. And I say this is one of the main reasons why I wanted to start a podcast around this awareness for students who are still dabbling with AI, and why this has become the need of the hour. As much as it is not something one cannot get by, but the job market, the market space where these students will be ultimately going and studying, would be going and working. The job market is pretty ready to hire employees who are skilled or AI enabled already. So my question to you is, while AI is changing every profession, how is Whitecliff adapting to this? And do you think it is fast enough to catch up with what is expected in the market?
Good questions, Priya. So I would say, is it fast enough? Maybe start with that one. I think this is a key differentiator and a key advantage of private universities also in Germany, that we are typically faster and more adaptive than public universities, and more practice and industry oriented than public universities, right? In that regard. So we are adapting this, we are implementing new technologies and new methods of teaching, but also new methods of forming employability in our curricula really fast, and which we also did with AI and which we are currently also doing. I think the AI transformation and transition journey, it's an amazing one, and everybody is part of it, but nobody can really catch up to it, because every day there's something new, right? New tools,
Absolutely.
new models, blah, blah, blah. And I find that pretty amazing. I have to say, personally, I think that AI is here to stay. Like the internet was invented and is I mean, this is also not something that you can shut down. The internet you cannot shut down. AI models you can at the moment shut down, which is maybe also one of my critical points, that maybe some companies have a little bit too much power in that field right now, which was, by design not possible with the internet back in the days. In that regard, I think that there has to be some kind of AI governance. If the EU AI Act is the right step, I don't know, but at least it's some kind of step. And like, if you look back in history, I think that it's always important to have some kind of evolvement, right? Continuous improvement also of like legislation, etc. So I think AI tools will stay, the hype will go away at some point. And as you said, I think future leaders, future managers, future employees, right, have to have a basic set of AI skills. And this is not about knowing everything about AI, but knowing in their domain what kind of tools are there, how can you use them, and what makes your productivity better. And this is what we are also doing at Whitecliff, right? To teach students to look at the tools, to evaluate the tools, to also critically review the tools, right? How could tools help them in their work field, and maybe also how to combine the tools together, because the workplace will change. I think it will be much more humanistic centered in the future, like like we said already before, right? The human to human interaction will be more important. And I have not the feeling that humans will be completely replaced by AI, without going into this Terminator view, etc. in the future. But basically, and not about a war between organic and inorganic specimen. We are not going into that direction. But I'm saying that basically jobs will transform. AI will stay there as a tool, right? Which will help us to be more productive, and hopefully also help us to foster the creativity. And go into these fields where humans can really outperform in terms of critical thinking, combining different fields, interdisciplinary, creative approaches. And this is also where we see Whitecliff in the future, right? In this creative domain, creative industries, also in the field of creative arts therapy, in the field of fashion design, everything which is really human-centric and for the cultural good of the future and of the society.
So well articulated, and it is so right what you're talking about. And I'm so happy you touched upon the AI Act, the EU AI Act. I think it's one of the first initiatives around setting up rules of the game around what AI will entail. Of course, it can never be complete because AI is evolving at lightning speed. And but still, to be able to pen down what could be the rules of the game when you are using AI across industries, across universities, and so I think it's a great place that EU is starting, and at least it will create a framework around which we can start work around AI officially. So it is nice, and it's really good to know what you're doing about AI into your spaces as well. And so, Peter, you have more than 2 decades of experience, right? Professional development. What do, in your experience, what do universities, including Whitecliff, still consistently get wrong about preparing students for work? Is there something that universities could do differently to help students because we see a lot of international students who come into the job market, they start working. That is another matter that the student has to work on himself, because I think the student is the work in progress, because he is entering a country which he aspired for, but forgot that there were certain skills along the way that he had to acquire. But what do you think, as an ecosystem that we are creating for education for students in Germany, that one could do differently to prepare them for the future of work, which is really changing at a very, very fast pace?
Priya, another good question. You seem to be prepared here. So, and you said 2 decades, right? I'm now feeling much older without looking at my falling out hair, right? So, and the gray hair which is left. So, what are universities doing wrong? I think, I'm a big fan of reviewing yourself and reflecting upon yourself, and we can always do better. I strongly believe that. I think, basically there has to be more customized help and support in the learning journey for individual students, because something which I also discussed with my colleagues a couple of days ago. I mean, everybody working at the university has some kind of idealistic intrinsic behavior, right? Or intrinsic motivation, in that regard, that they are not doing that primarily for the money, but basically by enabling and seeing people grow personally, from the career perspective, right? Socially, and no matter which kind of study you're doing. It doesn't matter if it's architecture, business, social work, right, medicine, etc. It's always about the people in the center and how you can influence and how you can help to uplift people. And I think one of the most delightful experiences if students coming back after years to you and say, "Hey, professor, good to see you again. I wanted to tell you that because of your lecture back in the days, this influenced me to take this decision and make my life a little bit better." Right? It does not have to be a major impact, but basically this feeling that you can assist somebody, you can support someone, that is really a wonderful thing. And if we can succeed in raising the percentage of students we can help directly, I think every university would be really happy to do that. I mean, we are doing a lot of that already, or we're trying to have a lot of support functions, from career to student support to housing support, etc. But I think we can always do better, especially because not every student is the same, and as we are growing, right, the challenge will be to have nobody left behind, because you always say, okay, these are the super students, and you saw them progressing from that to that level, which is great, but you have always the people who drop out, drop behind, lose their motivation. So, like, Priya, honestly, in life, I think the most complicated thing is communication. And in that regard, what we are doing at the university is also communicating and trying to motivate and trying to get hold of people and trying to speak directly to people. And we can always be better in doing that, because this is one of the most complicated things that humans can do.
I'm so happy you said this, because I think, and with you leading Whitecliff BI at this point of time, I can very safely say this, that with a head on your shoulders, right, you will be able to, and a heart in its place, you will be able to lead so many people, so many students comfortably. Because I think more than filling up the seats, that many times these universities are more focused on bringing a lot of students into their classrooms. But if we can handhold each student correctly, and like you said, communication is such a huge challenge today, to be able to counsel, to be able to handhold, one journey at a time, we can make such a big difference. You cannot do it all overnight, and thankfully time was divided like this, one day at a time. So, but it is beautiful what you say, and I'm so happy that we are talking about this. It's really good.
And Priya, thank you so much. You make me blush, right? But I have to also say, maybe going back to one of the first lectures that I've ever held as a lecturer back in the days, because before becoming a professor, I was for years an external lecturer, right? The thing is that the most, if you look at customer relationship management and especially complaint management, the most difficult part is to get the unvoiced complainers to voice their complaints, right? So for sure, we know that we are not perfect, right? We try to be better every day from all the processes, and all the people here at the university are also trying to be better every day. But the thing is, for sure, if we don't know, and it's not about getting the responsibility out of our way, right? But actually, it's also about having a communication channel where there's a dialogue and not a monologue, right? So you can speak a lot about people, what they can do, and that there are these and these activities, blah blah blah. But if nobody tells you that there's an issue or there's a need for support, right, then you're pretty much on your own. And this is only black box, and we want to break this black box. We want students on campus, which we know, which we work with, and who also like to be part of the community, so that we know what they need, how we can support them. So it's a give and take, basically, so that we can all have a better life together and a better society that we are building upon.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much for this direction of communication. I want to also ask you, as part of this Rebooted podcast, I want to also bring in a couple of questions that we do receive from students. We also work with a lot of schools in India where we train school counselors who understand how to, send students to Germany. What are the kind of counseling things that... So I have one question from a student and one question from a counselor. If you allow me, I'm going to get started with that one.
For sure.
So the first question from the student. So the way this, I want to give you a little background about this. So students in India and parents in India often associate German universities to American universities or UK universities where ranking plays a lot important part. This is my ongoing endeavor to help them understand that Germany does not rank its universities, because it ranks the students who's going to apply into these universities. Also because German public universities, you get to study for free. You don't market a free product, and that's why there is no ranking. Ranking is so marketing driven, and I have to break that, again and again in my conversations with students and counselors. So if I have to tell the story of the difference between a private and a public university to a student sitting in India, for example, who is very brand conscious, thinking this is the kind of #1 university or some QS World ranking, top 500 and all, what would be the way in which we would talk about private universities in Germany for them?
So private universities in Germany are much more practice-oriented, much more industry-connected, and it's much more individual, smaller cohorts, and much more, I would also say, quicker in being future-oriented. I mean, we are also working together with public universities, so I like public universities, right? But basically, these are two different fields. I always say the public university is ideal if you want to have an academic career later on, right? If you want to, write research papers, etc. And the private university is perfect if you want to already find a job while you're working, and studying, basically. And basically to have the best of both worlds at the same time, right? Future orientation with while you're studying, and job opportunities through your study. This is basically what private universities are offering, and especially in Germany at a much cheaper rate than anywhere else in the world, basically, when you're comparing it to UK or US and Canada and Australia, which is basically also a part of that based on reduced marketing costs per year, because if I have to run through every ranking, right, I have a lot of visibility costs that I have to somehow cover by my tuition fees.
Yes, and I think that way Germans are very logical. They will get down to the task directly than to market unnecessarily. So that is also another good thing I like about Germany.
It's a German directness, right?
It's a
in that
German
way.
directness, of course, and the earlier you understand it, the better for you if you want to settle down here. So I have a question from a school counselor. She says that what makes a strong BI applicant, Whitecliff BI applicant, and what profile do you see struggling once they arrive? And I think she's coming from the perspective that she wants to prepare those students who are coming into Germany and into a university like yours. And if they, what would be the right kind of a profile and how early can they start preparing would be her question actually.
They can start preparing as soon as possible, right? Because we have everything on the website ready. And we have also some preparation documents, especially when we are looking at the portfolios, which need to be prepared for the architecture and interior design study programs, but also there's some guideline for the admission interview. So basically, I would say the ideal student or ideal applicant is self-reflective and has already this first part of critical thinking, and is basically, it's not learned by heart what they should say, but it should be some kind of fluent, committed, interesting, driven conversation that they are showing off. This has not to be perfect, right? We are not looking at the perfect applicant, but at somebody who knows what they want to achieve in the future, what the advantages are when you are coming to Germany, like we discussed all over the place today, but also what they want to work later on, a basic idea and an open mindset. I think this is the most important thing. It's not about, the grades, etc. you have on the paper anyway, on the record of achievement. For sure, the grades play a role because they reflect upon the work that you have done for the last couple of years. But I think it's important to show that you are an interesting personality. And when I'm doing, this is maybe a nice story. When I'm doing admission interviews, Priya, one of my most beloved questions is, can you tell me something interesting about you? And then some students are really, or some applicants are really saying there's nothing interesting about them. Then we're saying, I don't believe you, right? And then all of a sudden, they say, okay, they go surfing and they programmed their first video game, and I don't know, they play cricket every other day, etc. And I say, look, all of a sudden you can tell me something about you. Exactly, right? And everybody has something to actually tell about them. And I think this is important to focus also in this self-reflective part, to be self-confident, because I can tell you all of the colleagues here, all the community members are really nice people, right? There's nobody snapping at you and there's nobody being angry on you, etc. Especially not when you meet the first time. So there's not, because sometimes there's also this hierarchical power distance, which I understand, right? You should show respect, yes, but not this kind of freezing in fear because you talk with somebody. Just you want something, we offer you something, there is something give and take, there's a nice conversation going on. We are all humans, we all want to help each other. That's great, we want to grow with each other. Lifelong learning, ahoy. That's great.
Absolutely. I also want to say this, that compared to many other cultures where work life can be a huge challenge, right? So they say the joke is that there is a time to come to work, but there is no time to go back home. I think that way is Germany particularly. I don't know about other European countries. I haven't worked there. I want to say that Germany has brought in so much of work-life balance that when you go to work, when you work, and when you get back home, you take being at home seriously, and so is your weekend, right? There is no crisscross between work. Of course, if you're an entrepreneur, then there are no borderlines, right? But it is amazing to see the kind of work culture Germany also brings, for that matter. I think it's good. Before I ask you my final question, Peter, here's what I'm taking away from this conversation for anyone listening our podcast today or in the coming future. I want to speak about a few things that you spoke about, that one could, amongst the million career paths that one can think of after graduating from Whitecliff University of Applied Sciences or BI, or for that matter, any private university in Germany. there could be an exploration of an entrepreneurial journey, which could be really empowering. And like you said, Germany is really coming up in huge ways. I also believe this very strongly, that the future of work will not be jobs. The future of work is very strongly likely going to be a lot of entrepreneurship. So if this is something that you were toying with an idea, then please come to Germany. This might just give you that option of setting up something of your own in a safe environment where everything is done correctly. And that is one of my key takeaways. The second is, you spoke about, if you want to settle down after your studies or during your studies, having a strong networking capabilities, going across and networking with people would only empower these students so much more to be able to land a job. And this networking need not always be for serious work. It can always be fun and play alongside, because Whitecliff University of Applied Sciences is based in Berlin. It is a very multicultural part of the world. If you come to a city like this, you should, if you're not networking with your peers, not networking with the multiple nationalities which reside here simultaneously, coexist peacefully, you would be missing out on a lot of other things, and you don't know, you might find your co-founder in that networking activity, or that dinner that you decided, or some cultural fest you moved to. And the most important takeaway for me today, Peter, after talking to you is that the communication part you spoke about, and how individual we need to be for each student, and how we can handhold them correctly. And this is something private universities, or public universities for that matter, in the coming age of AI era, when so much is going to be happening around the world, and we are going to just be a lot more distant from fellow human beings because we would be so engaged with technology. Having that kind of a communication, a strong communication which empathizes with the student's journey and customizes the solution as per the student's journey herself, is going to be one of the biggest differentiators that one university can have from the other. And I'm so happy that we are talking to your university, and the head of the university, yourself as a chancellor of the university. You lead with that heart. It is really heartwarming.
Just to add also here, Priya, it was a pleasure talking to you today, right? Just want to say, right, there's also a whole team, right, besides me.
Yes.
There's also our president, Professor Yüksel, etc., Javier and Barish, who are the vice president. So there is a lot more, right? It's not about me. I'm just saying it's
Yes,
a very
of course.
pleasure to be
Of course.
on your podcast. And maybe to also point this out, there's also no rivalry between the public and the private universities.
Correct.
To point it out, right? Because I think it's important. Private universities have smaller cohorts, have a more fast turnaround in curriculum development, so it's more future oriented sometimes, because we can be faster, and there's more industry connections and more opportunities to the market. The other thing is also, just to be completely transparent here, right? The public universities get money from the state for every student, right? We
Yes.
don't get anything from the state. No support from the state for any student, right? So this is then more a political discussion, right, that we can have, but this is actually something that also pushes us to give our best for the students, like you said before, to customize. We'll never be perfect, but we can try our best every day.
Absolutely. And my final question, Peter, amongst the many which I will ask every single guest on Rebooted, if you could reboot one thing about how we prepare international students for work, what would it be?
Rebooting one thing for international students. I think it's important that you have a good expectation management for the international students, meaning that it's another country. I often ask also the students, have you had any opportunity to look into Germany in terms of the culture, the climate, the language, etc.? Some say, okay, they are wonderfully prepared. Some say, okay, they saw some movies. Some say they had some acquaintances or some friends here, which definitely helps, right? But I think the ones that are really well prepared had either had some time already here, like I don't know, a holiday or something like that, or really have some personal connections and some intensive talks with people who have experiences. And that's the reason why I love these formats like your podcast, Priya, right? Because it gives you insights from people that are really on the ground. And you know, it's so much about expectation management generally in life, right? You should not. It's not a school like a school that you know from other countries, right? It's higher education in Germany, so that there are some quality expectations, right? There are some quality regulations that we have to follow. So it's another level. You have to step up your game, right? On the other side, the whole environment, like also outlined, has a lot of potential for you, but you have to grab it, right? That there is another language. Not everybody is speaking English. So if you do some efforts to speak a basic level of German, definitely helps. Be open-minded and build your network while you're being here. That already helps a lot. In terms of rebooting something, I think there is a lot of wrong expectations out there, sometimes a lot of miscommunication as well. Talk to people that have been here. Don't get influenced too much from social media. Make your own decision based on personal connections, and don't think that the next best influencer is your best buddy, because they are not, right? Just to get somebody on the phone, talk with them. Make also some appointment with some private universities, because they are offering also some kind of consultation with the admission team. As long as you have not signed a contract, everything is open, right? And in that regard, you know, it's important to stay curious from the beginning. I think this would be my take on that, to be honest.
Thank you so much, Peter. And ladies and gentlemen, that's Peter Konhäusner, Chancellor of Whitecliff University of Applied Sciences, based in Berlin. I'm Priya Rao. This is Rebooted Community. If this conversation made you think, share it with the person who might need this, and we will see you in the next episode. Thank you.